I would like to ask administration, fellow council members, everyone in the audience to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a few number of council and special meetings we had. May the 20th, June 5th, and June the 10th. Is there any corrections or additions?
Yeah, just one on, and a little discussion on the June 10th regular council meeting. It indicates that on the motion to approve the committees, that Mr. Wood voted yay, abstaining from Tim Turco. That's not actually what happened. Jim voted yay to that motion. That he did mention abstaining from Tim prior to that, but that was not the response to the motion. I bring that up mainly because it's incorrect. It's incorrect. That's not what his response was to the motion that was made, and it's illustrated on the audio. But more importantly than a correction to the minutes is this has been going on for a long time. So I'd like to get on the same page and have conversation. The question is, can you abstain from a single portion of a motion, such as a particular person or particular action in a part of a motion that's made, when voting on a single motion that contains more than one person or more than one action? I think in general we have a problem correctly and clearly articulating our motions. This is a really good example. I spoke with MML today about it, and according to MML, and I want to get us all on the same page, whether we agree or disagree, I'd like to get on the same page about how we handle these kinds of votes. According to MML, the only allowed answers to a motion are yay, nay, or abstain. That's it. There's no conditional statements. It's all or nothing. You cannot vote for some, but not all of the motion. You can ask for an amendment so that you could break the motion down into two or more, but if the motion is for a slate of candidates, for example, then your choices are yay, nay, or abstain to the whole motion, not to part. So I think we should correct the minutes because that's not what happened. And I think that we need to be very careful in the future if we are in agreement with MML. If we're in disagreement with MML, then I think we need more conversation as to how we conduct our business so that we get this right. Are there opinions, or I would ask if there is a disagreement from MML on how to handle voting on a motion?
Well, I don't disagree with MML. They are a good reference. They have no lawyers on staff. And they've recommended to lots of cities what they should and shouldn't do. And that's what their primary purpose is to cite us or tell us what we did wrong in their opinion and make recommendations. I'm not disagreeing with what you just said, but in the same token, we allowed a motion just prior to that, the same way. So if you're going to correct one, you have to correct
Well,
one.
actually, I'm not correcting.
I mean, well, you said,
Let me,
okay.
Because I can answer that. They are actually different. What I'm correcting here is what actually happened. In the motion where Kathy voted but abstained, she abstained in the motion, and it says so in the minutes reflect that her response to the motion was conditional, which is, I believe, inappropriate, okay?
Yeah.
I think we shouldn't do that.
shouldn't do that.
But what we have in this case that I'm asking for a correction is that he voted abstaining, and that's not what happened.
Right.
So I would like the minutes corrected to be an accurate reflection of what happened, and then the issue of whether or not we should do that is a separate issue.
Well, what we'll do on that in the future is if we make a motion, we'll have no comments like Kathy made or what, like Jim made. It's either yay, nay,
Or abstain.
or abstain, because I've done that 2 or 3 times to different council people and just saying there's no discussion, this is what it is. No statements, yay, nay, or abstain. So we will live with that, we will correct that.
Okay.
What about what he said about making an amendment to that motion?
You can.
Because on a slate of officers, Jimmy might want to very well vote for every one of them except Tim.
So,
And there may be 3 or 4 other items and everybody's in favor of it, but 2 people have close ties and that prevents them. They're not abstaining from everything. So it needs to be broken down if that's actually what has to happen.
that should happen in discussion prior to the vote.
Right.
The
The correct
discussion
procedure
is
when
to
making the
amend.
motion would be that on this particular individual in this committee, while there are other committee members, my amendment is to abstain on his proposal.
I don't think so. You wouldn't,
Can't.
you wouldn't amend the motion for your vote. You would amend the motion to pull that one piece out as a separate motion.
That's fine, yeah.
But that discussion about amending a motion should happen in discussion after
Correct.
the second,
Yes,
not in the vote.
yes.
Agreed. Okay. Any other corrections? I'll entertain a motion in minutes.
I'll make motion to approve the minutes with
Okay.
the corrections.
A second.
Motion made and seconded.
And what exactly is the correction?
The correction is on page 2, the first paragraph after the finishing, listing the commissions and committees. It says that Mr. Wood voted yea, abstaining from Tim Turco. I believe that that's incorrect, that to the motion, the vote was yea. There was prior conversation in discussion about abstaining, and I understand completely. You
Is that
meant
in-
not to vote for Tim Turco.
I
I did
did.
that. Okay, I believe you did, but that's okay. We
Well, I
can-
made a motion that we accept all appointees, except,
Actually, that wasn't your motion. And if that was your motion, then it should be in here as your motion. The motion was to accept the recommendations for committee. Your vote was yay. There was prior, and the whole point of this is, it's not what you intended. And everybody knows that. And nobody's prosecuting you for that. We understand your intention was to not vote for Tim. What I'm saying is that procedurally, so that you're not in this position, we need to do a better job of how we handle our votes. You should never be in a situation of even being able to say yay with but I'm abstaining from a certain person. That person should be pulled out and made as a separate motion. And then you don't have that problem. And that should be an amendment made in discussion. But in this case, that's not what happened if you listen to the audio.
Well, but I do remember him making that exception
In
to his
discussion,
vote.
it was not a part of the motion.
I understood it to be. And 77-080 says, no ordinance shall be passed except by bill, and no bill shall become an ordinance unless on its final passage a majority of the members elected to the council shall vote therefor, and the ayes and nays shall be entered on the journal. So the statute doesn't even refer to an abstention. But I clearly understood that he was not voting on that one individual. And if that's what his intent was when he cast the vote, the minutes shouldn't reflect something else. And
I think the minute should be a factual representation of what was actually the motion was and what the actual vote on that motion was. I don't believe that we should conjecture and add our what I thoughts into it. I believe that the point is to have a factual written motion and a factual written vote, and there is an error according to the audio. I am in complete agreement. I also understood what his intention was. I am using this as an illustrative point that we shouldn't be putting ourselves in this situation. I do believe that there's an error in the minutes because it's not factual. I agree that that was not his intent, but minutes don't reflect intent.
Well, what does the audio recording actually say? Is there a transcript of that? Because you could substitute the audio recording, including
Yeah,
the gentleman saying, "I'm not voting on Mr. Turco."
sure.
And-
But we
and so,
didn't.
You
So
know,
that
unless
would
he
be a possible
agrees to the
correction.
amendment, to the minutes you propose, I suggest one way to do it is just put in a verbatim transcript of the audio recording. Because he was not voting on Turco, and I don't know the reason for the abstention as to Mr. Turco.
Nepotism.
Okay. So, to try to change the minutes to make it look like he cast a vote.
I don't want to change the
Well,
minutes.
if I could just finish.
But you're putting attention on something that I
No.
don't have.
I'm just saying, if you put an amendment on these minutes that makes it appear to the reader that he was voting for relative, then he forfeits his office. And I don't think there's anybody
Do you
present
mean
here who thinks that he was trying to vote.
Do you mean to say that if he had voted yes without that he would forfeit his office?
It becomes an issue under the Constitution. Yes,
Okay.
it does.
Then maybe we need to revisit an earlier vote. But in
But
this
I-
case,
Go ahead, sir.
in this case, my intention is not to make it look like you were voting in a nepotism situation. In fact, I would love to have something included here that says, prior to this motion, there was discussion that you did not want to vote for Mr. Turco. But that's not what happened. If you want a correct set of minutes, that's not what happened.
The issue is a procedural issue,
Yeah.
so.
And you can do it, obviously, probably the best way is if you separate that out, you do two motions, then it becomes clear. But
we
you
didn't.
end up exactly at the same spot. And I know that at least since I've been here, it's been common for people to cast a vote
We do not.
with that little proviso at the end.
We do not end up at the same position. In fact, on that vote, I asked that we break it down, that we break it out, and that was denied in a 4-4 tie, and that would have changed my vote. So the fact that I had an issue with a part of a slate of candidates, for that reason, I voted nay to the whole slate. It was not my intention to vote nay to each individual. So it is exactly the same thing.
Okay. Unless the councilman agrees exactly with the amendment you propose, I just suggest that.
You mean he has to agree, or the council has to agree to make the correction?
Well, even as one member of the council, if he disagrees with the act of the majority of the council, he can make a legislative record and ask that the transcript of those portions be inserted into the minutes.
Well, then let's amend it to insert a transcript of the record, which includes the portion where you say you're prior to this vote, where you indicate you do not want to vote on your relative. Okay, so that it's included and there's no question about what your intent was, but we still have a factual representation about what happened.
And that's what Kathy's gonna have to do too.
Well, if you'd like, but Kathy's is factually represented. She abstained from that one. What the minutes say happened is what happened
But
in
a
Kathy's
transcript,
case.
a transcript will resolve that anyway.
Then that would be fine, but it will match what the minutes already say. In the case of this one, it does not match. That's why I'm asking for correction, so that it matches, it's correct.
If the council, and I'm saying this, if the council agrees with that, you can correct it. If they don't agree with it, you can turn it down.
So I agree, put we all know that that's what Jim intended. So I say put that in there so it reflects,
You are amending your motion to put a transcript in
Yes.
instead of the summary.
yes.
And I think that solves all of it, unless you guys are disagreement with that.
So I'm in my motion to make the transcript.
Second.
Well, Mr. Hoffman would have to second it because he was the original second.
Oh, I apologize.
Oh, okay, I second.
Motion made and second, call the roll.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mr. Needham?
Yes.
Mr. Polis?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yay.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Wood?
Yes. Can I vote on that?
That's a valid question.
About me.
Okay,
Question.
old business,
I have 2 items.
okay?
The first one is just on digital communication. I had mentioned I would establish email addresses for all council people, which I have done, and pass those around. 4 of them forward to our individual accounts, and 4 of them forward to the city clerk's email address. So,
Administration.
yeah, there's
have
12
to-
copies there, so I
Okay.
think everyone up here will have it. And it's basically just our name, for instance, Sal Polis at louisiana-mo.com, and it'll get to the councilman you're wanting. If that councilman does not do email, we'll go to the clerk, and she'll put it in the box. So
That's great. Thank you, Bart.
that is done.
Did you leave one from,
And then I have, if there's no questions or comments on that, I had one other thing, which was I wanted to discuss the real estate contracts. Did you have a different place you wanted to put that in the agenda? Yes.
Well, just a question on this. Are these case sensitive?
No, email addresses and domain names are not case sensitive in any context. So I wasn't sure if you had a different place you wanted to put in the real estate sales, or if now is a good time with.
We might as well, you got, actually.
You got the 2 parties that are
The
involved.
2 parties are involved, and they're actually going to speak they're slated to speak at the next.
So perhaps we could discuss it, or when do you want to handle it? I have some thoughts on it.
Well, why don't we let Dempsey's come forward, because they are on the agenda.
Well,
And
this
then-
is old business.
I understand that, but you have some people here that's gonna address that old business. And they asked to be on the agenda, and I think we should hear from them first, and then we'll hear from the council. So we will open council to anybody that would like to address, and the council may do so at this time. And Mr. Dempsey, you're up first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Administrator, City Council. Lynn and myself are here to ask about the lot that we asked previously to purchase from the city for the caboose set. We have today purchased out on Lynn's lot beside our building, so we can go ahead and proceed on with construction of saving our building and getting something going. And we're just curious, it's been 2 councils now since we've inquired, and we're just curious to why we haven't received a word yet on yay or nay. Are we going to be allowed to buy the lot or whatever? Everybody knows this is a small town. I'm born and raised here all my life, and scuttlebutt goes around. I hear something about leasing. I'm not interested in leasing. I want to purchase.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Does any of the council have anything they'd like to say to the Dempseys while they're here?
Not specific to the Dempseys, but about the real estate, I definitely have.
Okay, go ahead and
What
be,
kind of business, are you guys doing a business in there?
We will be.
We will be.
What kind of business?
We're not disclosing that yet.
Oh, secret.
Yes.
Do you know when you'll start on the wall?
Hopefully by the end of July, the wall will be.
A pet shop, probably.
No, that's not.
I just didn't want another meeting.
Yep.
You got a monkey on?
Basically on their behalf, whether or not they receive the caboose property is not going to affect their ability to affect repairs to the wall.
Right, we purchased that lot where the Rainbow Flower Shop was. We purchased that lot today from Al Lynn, so that will get us full procedure in construction.
Bob, it was you that was telling me about the construction of the wall. We're doing block.
Yes,
Right.
basically from what Doug had passed on to me, there would be a 5-foot footing poured.
It'd be 14 inches thick, 3 feet wide with 3 5-foot legs coming off, concrete, 5 foot
Right.
deep, 5 foot out to support the wall, and then it'd be cinder block wall built up to the height. And I just previously learned behind 20 feet of the wall of the building still original from the Rainbow Flower Shop. Me and Mr. Adams looked at it, discussed it, and he said being that is a 3/4 wall still, then will not be as long. It still has the original Rainbow Flower Shop plaster lat on it, so that will be removed, beautified. Lynn's gonna start painting the backside of the building this week or next week, so we are making repairs as we speak.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Can't you talk to them about that wall? About
just the backside, what he was talking, the backside, the front is just 1 or 2 layers of brick thick. The backside is a full 3 brick plus plaster and stuff. So it's still a solid wall, just a portion of the backside. So,
Okay, thank you, Tim. Tim, you're up.
Yeah, Tim Carter, Council Mayor, thank you for this opportunity to speak with you. We've been going through this process a little over a year. With the old building next to ours, roof leaking, water damage entering our building. City's been making steady progress and got the building down. We greatly appreciate that. When that building was leaking water and going into our basement, it started eroding underneath our foundation wall, getting water into our building. With the building gone and the grade as it is currently, we started receiving a lot more water. Not only water, but now we got red clay dirt that I get to shovel up every time it rains. And the 1 foot undermining of the foundation wall is now to 4 to 5 feet. Spoke with Bob and the city about resolution, what we can do, spoke with council numerous times, possibilities. And I threw out a proposal to Bob about, it's going to cost money to fix this. Not just my building, but to prevent future damage from water runoff and quite frankly, an eyesore that's in downtown Louisiana. So it's going to cost some money. City has already spent money tearing down the building and trying to stabilize the wall adjoining my building. Quite frankly, it does the job, but it's not beautification of downtown Louisiana. So if I had to throw a dollar figure out there for the council, what it would take to fix it, in my estimation, not that I'm an engineer, but I've worked with engineers, and I won't hold that against anyone who's an engineer. But it's going to take about $15,000 just to stabilize what's there, let alone whatever blood, sweat, and equity that I'll put into it to try to beautify this. My wife and I, Sandy, we aren't millionaires. We are very common people. We don't have means just to hire stuff out. We do stuff ourselves quite a bit, but we do have the means to do it. So the last council meeting, we was referred to as those people as far as what we're going to do with it. We're going to beautify it. We're going to make it a point of reference for this community. And that's what we want to do with it. So with your all's help, the sooner we can get this ball going, we'd already had this thing underway. It may be a little bit at a time, but that's what we're going to do.
And that's kind of my question, Tim, is, do you guys have an idea in mind of when you could have it? And obviously the infrastructure is the first thing we gotta get taken care of, but.
Well, I've already, if you've looked at the lot, I stopped it from going into my building right now. It's another eyesore, but I stopped there because
I'm not gonna put any equity into it
Sure, I
anymore
understand.
until we get things resolved.
Just a rough.
But I'm planning on mowing grass by the second or third week of September
Okay,
in there.
that's realistic.
That's realistic.
And just to add on to it, as I've expressed, I said, the contract that you received with the ordinance is not etched in stone. There are caveats that if the council wants these particular caveats entered into the contract, then we can negotiate that through each of these parties.
That's, I know Mr. Rapp touched on that a little bit about how we can structure the contracts, and on the city's concern, like you said, you just want to protect yourself to make sure that somebody doesn't come in and do a little bit of work and all of a sudden see the back of the market or doesn't get done. And again, I'm tickled pink that you guys are doing this, all of you guys are, it's phenomenal.
Yeah, the thing about this, and I take, I don't know the right word, exception as far as what we're gonna do with the lot. I understand the city's interest, it's downtown, it's right in the middle for everyone to see. The city's on that property for X amount of years now. All right, what do we expect any citizen of Louisiana to do with their property? We got building codes, we got historic districts, we got everything that, we have guidelines, and we intend to follow all those guidelines. Now, if I go bankrupt or if I die 6 months from now, no holds barred. I can't promise you the future as far as what's going to transpire, but I can tell you what my intent is. So that's my intent.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think you touched on something, and that is that the Historic Preservation Commission is the person you should be doing a lot of talking to. The downtown area is a federal, state, and local historic district. And as such, we have certain sorts of regulations that must be followed. And they are the Department of Interior standards.
Councilman Hoffman, I'm fully aware of the historic district. I own a building in the historic district.
But,
We're talking about 2 empty lots, there's no structures on it.
right,
So if I put a structure on there, I would definitely have to follow those guidelines.
that's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm trying to wrap my mind around this and some of the concerns that have been voiced to me and that I have. The first question I have is procedural, and then we can get into these particular properties. But procedurally, why do we need ordinances to do this? There's no state statute, no constitutional requirement.
Let me have Mr. Rapp answer that for you. Because he looked that up also.
Well, the body politic is a corporation. It's in effect a public corporation. Corporations can't go get loans at bank unless they have a corporate resolution authorizing the corporation to become indebted. The bank, otherwise the bank won't lend a corporation money. Corporations have to have resolutions from their board of directors authorizing certain actions, and the sale of real estate has traditionally been considered one of those that you have to have the authority to do. So it's always been that way. So the mayor can execute a deed, but if he doesn't have the assent of a majority of the council to authorize him to do that, the deed arguably isn't worth anything.
So
It's for him, and also, before the deed, the entering into the contract for the sale or purchase of real estate, he has to have some kind of authorization if it's not already in an ordinance. So you pass an ordinance pertaining to one piece of property.
in the past, I believe that's been done through a resolution empowering the mayor to enter into that contract, as opposed to a formal ordinance.
Well,
And it's
in effect, that's what it is. I mean, if you,
it's been done
these
without
ordinances that
resolution.
have numbers are ordinances that are, gonna be used over and over. These are a one-time deal, and that's why it's numbered ordinance number just 2013, special ordinance. I mean, you could consider it a resolution. Legally, it doesn't have any distinction. It's-
There's no legal difference between an ordinance and a resolution?
No, I'm not gonna go that far, but as a practical matter in this instance, there's no distinction. A resolution is more considered a one-time deal.
There is a practical difference that occurs to me in terms of our process. If it's an ordinance, it has to go through the ordinance committee, et cetera, which is part of what we're dealing with today. If it's a resolution, it does not. So there is a significant procedural
Well-
difference between an ordinance and a resolution that is particularly germane to trying to get those wonderful people who are trying to get something done downtown, get this satisfied as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
So that's why I asked,
Yeah, I
can we do this through resolution instead of ordinance that simply empowers the mayor to enter into such and such contract?
Let me give you something. When I came back as mayor in 2010, we went out to the industrial park. We own that ground out there too. But the previous council, no resolution, no ordinance, dealt with them people out there and actually gave them 10 acres. 5 acres to build on, and if they completed and did what they said they were gonna do, they got another 5 acres. And that was done by council action, no resolution, no ordinance. That happened. And my question to this council, you're talking about an ordinance, you're talking about a resolution. The council is empowered right now to say, we're gonna sell it to the Carters, or we're gonna sell it to the Dempseys. They have that authority.
And my understanding is that if we're
Without
doing it
a
by
res-
ordinance, we are not empowered.
The ordinance came from Mr. Rapp because the council sat right here and voted, draw up an ordinance to where we can sell the property to the Dempseys and to the Carters.
I believe we asked for a contract, not an ordinance.
Well, here's what the minutes say. Ms. Smith made a motion to have the attorney draw up a contract for the Dempseys to purchase the lot that the caboose sat on. So, and I drew up the contract and the proposed quitclaim deed and the enabling ordinance, so.
This is a little frustrating. All I'm trying to say is, if we don't have to have it by ordinance, which I do not believe we have to have, if we can do this by resolution, then we can streamline this process so that we can assist getting this done without working on a geological
actually-
timescale through resolution much more effectively than through ordinance.
Well, if you want to change this word in here, in this document from ordinance to resolution, you know, that's fine. And you bring up some valid points about these ordinances, 110, 230 to 260 about enacting ordinances in this city. Actually, this puts limitations on the council's powers which are not set out in State Law 77080, which probably ought to be revisited sometime by the ordinance committee, since your ordinances are supposed to be consistent with state law. The question comes whether the council could validly enact an ordinance which restricts the power of a future council to enact an ordinance or resolution. I don't know that you can actually do that, and there's parts of these that
This
probably
is-
ought to be repeated.
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with 110, 270.
No, 77,
110.
the ordinances, your ordinance numbers are 110, 230, the style of ordinances, 240 procedure, to consider any bill or ordinance, 250 declaring emergency
Right.
status, and 260 on enactment. Those ordinances are not totally consistent with state statute 77.080.
Agreed.
Well, they were,
But I don't know what that has to do with the fact that today, if we wanted to consider taking action, if we wanted to today, and I'm not suggesting that we do, if we wanted to today, to act on selling the Dempseys or the Carters these properties, we cannot do so by those ordinances that were prepared. We could if we had resolutions. There's also a difference in the requirement for the voting for it to pass between those two things. They are substantially different. They're fundamentally different mechanisms. It's not an arbitrary distinction and a change of word. It changes what it is. And I am suggesting that we need resolutions, not ordinances, to empower the mayor to take action so that we can move quickly.
Well, I can tell you there was
It seemed like
one
a simple
prior instance when we did it exactly this way, and I've done it a couple times for the city of Currywell, and the title company accepted all the documents, and the recorder of deeds of Pike County filed them, and the transfer was accomplished. You say it can't be done? You're the legislator. You are free to change anything you want in these
Okay.
documents
I'd like to
before
make-
you consider them or pass them.
I'd like to make a motion that in the case of these two properties that are under consideration, that we handle the empowerment of the mayor to act on any decisions through resolution instead of ordinance so that we can streamline this process. That's a motion.
Wait a minute, wait to get a second.
I'll second.
Okay,
fine.
now
Discussion.
Discussion.
In the past, and if I'm wrong, I'll stand corrected, but when we sold the property to BNSF, it was not done in the form of a resolution. A motion was made that we go ahead and empower the mayor to proceed with the transaction.
Right.
Either
There
that-
was no resolution.
There was nothing. We
Then the
just.
question is, then the
So,
question is back to the lawyer.
do we need a
Do we
resolution?
even need a resolution?
I think you need some kind of authority from the council to enable the
That's
mayor
more than the motion.
to execute the deed, to enter into a contract for the transfer of the real estate, number one, and number two, for the mayor to execute the deed, changing title of the
And
property.
your feeling is that that authority must come from something stronger than a motion, therefore being a resolution or ordinance. A motion
You
is not,
can,
does not suffice for giving that
You can
authority.
change the title of this however you want, but
Will a motion suffice to empower the mayor to enter into these contracts for real estate?
no, because it's not something, a copy of which is going to be ever recorded.
So
The
then,
title company might say, question the title. They
Then-
could possibly put a cloud on the title and render it to such a state that a person couldn't get title insurance on it.
Okay.
If you don't want to do that, you want to pass good, clear, free title to the land.
Sharon,
Okay, working for the title company at one time, and the way it's been in the past, all they have asked for is a copy of the minutes showing the motion where the mayor was authorized to sign paperwork.
that's official record
So,
by law.
what's official
Tom?
record by law?
The
I
motion.
don't
motion.
wanna
And
throw a
reflected
monkey
in the
wrench
minutes.
in the Carters or the Dempseys getting this property, because I think if they want it, I'm all for them having it. If our ordinance says we wanna sell a piece of property, we have to advertise it for 2 weeks.
No,
No.
It doesn't?
no, he checked after.
We do
Oh,
not,
We do not have to?
We do not,
Okay.
sir.
Then fine, I'm all for them having the property.
no, we do not have to.
That.
And I believe Bart will agree with me on that point.
I'll let him finish.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else? This is on a different subject
Yes.
involving this. Go ahead, finish. I'm gonna wait.
Well, I've made a motion. that
Yeah, you got a
we
motion
get-
and a
and we
second.
got a second.
We've
We've had discussion.
To handle these two properties through resolution so that we can streamline this system and provide the assurance that the lawyer is indicating we need. right?
Okay, motion made, seconded, call the roll.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mr. Niedner?
Yes.
Mr. Polis?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yay.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Wood?
Yes. Okay, so be it.
So that handles the procedure of how we would handle empowering the mayor. That is not giving the mayor that empowerment, just to be clear. when we think about whether or not to make this decision to sell, there are three reasons I can think of that the city may want to sell a piece of real estate. We could make a profit or liquidate it for cash. That would be a good reason. Doesn't apply to either of these cases. Reduce the city's liability significantly applies to the 309 Georgia Street property. Encourage a common good for the citizens of Louisiana. In other words, we're using our public resources. We are putting them in action on behalf of the well-being of our citizens. We also must consider whether or not it's fair to all citizens. So the complaint that I hear on this issue, and I'll be clear, I want to act fast, and I want to move both of these properties to the two individuals that are interested. That is my goal, and the goal is to do it fast. But we need to be fair about this. Many citizens might like to have one or both of those properties for $1.
There's actually 3 properties there.
Okay. Many citizens may like to have such a deal, not just these private individuals. So my suggestion is that perhaps a public RFP, and we can do this quick, a request for proposals publicly made, that the city has these properties available, is interested in giving them or selling them at a very reduced rate to someone who wants to do something for the public good on these properties, which is exactly what our motivation is.
Here's my issue with it.
I got a question.
Okay.
Pam, let get him.
Go ahead.
The question I have about that, if you do a request for a proposal, I understand in all fairness, to request for a proposal, let's say on our properties, you're going to have to include, if you was to entertain it, you're going to have to include, you want to take over possession of 2 standing walls, Paul Lewis, and my building. Because now they will assume that liability. Let alone whatever adjoining wall is on Fred Lasser's building. Now and then they got to assume the liability of whatever damages that's going to continue to occur on my property and would have to fix it.
Yeah.
And in my mind, the essence would be in a very quick time and fashion. I told you by the second week, third week in September. Right? My estimation is at a minimum, just to stabilize, at a minimum, it's $15,000. So, you know, even though I understand that, and I understand the reasoning behind that, I think it'd be pretty futile, because I can't imagine too many people would want to assume the liability of property. Exactly.
But yet,
Still do that process too.
but yet it has been brought up to me that if he can have it, I would like it.
Well,
So here's my goal. I do not believe that you will have any competition.
Right.
I believe this is dotting i's and crossing t's because the Constitution of Missouri says we cannot use public resources for private benefit. I want to completely eliminate any possible accusation that this council has violated that basic tenet. If we can do that quickly, I'll get you the property.
I appreciate that. I understand that. And I didn't mean to accommodate. But I've been coming here for a little over a year, and I haven't seen anyone expressing an interest.
can I speak actually, real quick?
Yeah, okay. Let him, go ahead.
Let me speak real quick. It's in turn to that, and this is where I think in this situation, and I see his point, but at the same time, they actually were proactive and brought a plan. So in that situation, that shows me they, not so much that they should be rewarded for that, but they are actually proactive in putting things together. When I spoke, to Bob, and you said something about we're able to change this contract, what the stipulations I would like to see
Yes.
is a plan in place and a realistic time frame. So, to send the bids out, if Mr. Rapp said that was a liability issue for us down the road, I would say, yeah, I can understand that we should bid it out. But just because they bring plans to us proactively first, that tells me from years of those sitting there that they're serious about it. Again, we need to protect ourselves and make sure that it's done correctly, and make sure that it's done to improve and it's not just done to sell. So that's where I'd like to see that set in these contracts.
Those caveats
Right,
secure not only Tim and Doug and their wives,
right.
but it secures the city.
Well, and I see Bart's point, I absolutely do, because we want to stay away from liability, but at the same time, when somebody comes with an idea and puts a plan in place, 18 people shouldn't have the opportunity to come out and say, well, we can do it for cheaper, we can do it better. So as long as they do it to our standards, I'm okay with that. That's just my personal
And
opinion.
they've purchased the property, so that to me is self-sufficient intent.
Right.
Dempsey?
Well, I just want to say, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Administrator, you know, Lynn and I, we've been back here 5 years. Like I said, I was born and raised here. As Mr. Carter's concerned, you know, Lynn and I did buy the building that we are planning on opening a business into, and we have purchased Mr. Alan Lynn's property as well. And, you know, in 3.5 years that I've been back here fully, you know, I haven't seen anybody else, as Mr. Carter brought up, mention that lot. It's been set there vacant. You know, now we bring it up and say, hey, we want to put a parking lot, and Mr. Policia, you know, you want a timeline. We plan on having this all completed by Colorfest, maybe not a concrete parking lot, but a gravel one, as Mr. Adams said, has discussed, so it settles. You know, once you dig all the old, I mean, you know, I drove my truck across it. You can't drive your truck hardly across
Right.
it.
It
You know,
doesn't have to
but
be a short-term fix. What I'm saying
We want to
is,
make a long-term.
I want to make sure that when it's done right. It's done
Yes.
long-term, because we're giving property away.
Right.
Whether it's junk property or not, we're still giving property away basically for a dollar.
Right.
So to improve that project, there's been all kinds of debris initiative, other things in place. So if there's a realistic plan that's tangible, you know, I disagree in that sense. I don't think we should, if we don't have to by law to bid it out, I think you guys come with a comprehensive plan, but make sure it's not one of those that just say, hey, well, we're gonna do this when we get to it, we're gonna do that. Put it, I'm not saying you would, you see my point, I'm not saying you guys would do that, that's just me personally.
Right.
And I know Bob would look that over, but again, that's where I kinda disagree. So as long as it's not a fly-by the seat of the pants type situation, any improvement for me would be great.
Okay. Okay, is everybody,
Well, to conclude, when I spoke with MML about this, they said basically the same thing. State statute doesn't get into specifics about how we sell this. More relevant is the Missouri Constitution, which says public funds cannot be used for private purpose. That's my concern. I want to make sure that we take reasonable effort to ensure that we're acting responsibly. In the absence of a city ordinance, it comes down to an ethical public appearance transparency decision for us about how we show the public that we're acting responsibly. And MML says that it is usually advertised and appraised, and that's what they recommend that we do. I am recommending that we take 1 week and put out an RFP on both properties immediately, and in 1 week have a special meeting specifically to address these two properties. Whatever proposals would come in, which frankly I expect to be the two that are on the table right now, we consider and make a decision by resolution, if we decide to go forward by resolution, to empower the mayor to take action. To resolve this thing in 1 week, but we give the appropriate dues to acting responsibly per the Missouri Constitution.
didn't the council just authorize a resolution to sell this property?
The motion was that that's how we would handle it.
Yeah.
We didn't authorize to do it. I was very specific about that.
Okay, then I'll entertain a motion that we do it.
I'll make that
That would
motion.
sell the property? Would we still be, why would you,
Discussion.
discussion. Would we still
Because
be,
this man's already told you, Mr. Needner, he has waited a year. And we've sat on it for a year. The other building that's being repaired, or going to be repaired, we've sat on it for 3 years.
So let's not make bad into worse. Let's do it right and take a week.
I don't think prolonging it is doing it right. I think you're doing an injustice to the people that's invested their money already. And it's up to this council to decide. I got the floor now. It's up to this council to decide whether we sell it or not, and he just made a motion.
I need a discussion.
Well, you don't have a second.
I didn't even hear the motion.
Make the motion.
I make the motion that we give the mayor the authority to sell a property,
Which property?
both.
Do I have a second? Motion made and second.
Now I need a discussion. Stipulations like I spoke about on these contracts, are we going to be able to change those
Yes,
to put in the situation, Mr. Rapp, are we going to be able to either have the properties back in the claim of the city? How would we write that? Because, you know, you don't want to put an unrealistic timeline, but at the same time, again, if we're gonna be doing this, I want it done right as well. So, you know, I don't want to just, again,
Yeah.
say what you want, my dad owned a construction company, I want to make sure there's plans in place that this is done correctly.
Caveats.
We had enough bad businesses come in and out that we
Yes.
can't have that anymore.
Yes, Kent had something.
We have an ordinance in code compliances with the city. If a building will not meet code compliance, it does not stop the sale of the property. If it fails a compliance inspection, we have a piece of paper, it's called a transfer of ownership, and that piece of paper has to be signed by the buyer of the property and notarized by a notary public. And it states in that within a reasonable amount of time, that the buyer of the property will bring the entire building into complete code compliance, city code compliance, within a reasonable amount of time.
But I don't think we're asking them to really bring it into compliance as much as implement a plan for their business.
Agreed.
But I mean, because a lot of buildings in town, no disrespect, are in compliance, but
There's
there's
some
still
that
problems.
aren't. You're right.
So-
And my concern is that the wall has been there for 3 years. We've had cattle pounds around that. Can you imagine
I'm all for
if some little kid come down Georgia Street on Color Fest?
There's a parachute, I'm all for it, I wanna see it fixed. You know, that's not my issue, but I agree with Bart, I wanna make sure it's done right. What's that?
There's no building on the property
No.
Robert, can caveats be changed to the contract?
To the real estate contract, yes, but the remedy for breach of that would be suit for breach of contract. It wouldn't be undoing this sale if you convey it by quitclaim deed. You know, it's theirs, you could sue them for damages, whatever you could prove up as damages to the city, but that's about all you could do. The other route is the contract for deed, where in the contract for deed, the agreement says, we will execute a deed, but not before you do A, B, and C, and you have to do A, B, and C by certain specified dates, or get a waiver from the city of those conditions.
That would be great.
I've got this over here.
Yeah, Tom, I'd like to amend my motion and make it to all 3 properties or properties in question.
You can't make an amendment while you got the first motion on the floor.
Well, I wanted to.
Unless he withdraws his second, and you
withdraw your first.
You gotta, if he wants to make an amendment on his main motion, you have to withdraw your second, and then,
I'll withdraw my second.
Yeah, I want to make it all 3 properties.
I second that.
you can second that.
There you go. Now I have a
Okay,
question.
discussion.
What would we do if we put this up for bid in the paper? And a mess like up on North 8th Street come in and bid more money for that ground? Where would we be then?
Are you asking me?
I'm asking anybody like
My
me.
opinion is that if we put out an RFP, not a bid, okay, we're requesting a proposal to do something that would benefit Louisiana with these properties. It is entirely up to this council. It's not a matter of dollars. It is entirely up to this council to determine, for subjective reasons, any reasons, which proposal we think best fits the needs of Louisiana. It's up to us. It doesn't matter how much someone else comes to bid. It doesn't matter what someone else discusses or brings up. we get to consider that and make that choice. But then we've done it openly, we've done it inclusively, it's cost us 1 week to do, and I think that's worth it.
So,
Okay.
okay, so the
Well, they've been
process,
trying.
Wait a
to
minute,
get
wait a minute.
the-
Go ahead. When you speak, I want y'all to get it in order. You, go ahead, you stay at the floor.
I was gonna, they've been fighting with this for a year to get this piece of property. And the whole time it's ruining their foundation, their footing. And the city, at some point, is gonna be responsible for this. And I don't think the city wants to buy that building.
No, I'm all for moving forward, I'm all for
And we need
doing
to
it,
move forward.
I'm all for doing it responsibly.
I guess I wanted to make sure that it is right. And it is legal, and we don't find ourselves in a mire. And at this point, I'm saying that I think that Bart has the right idea. It's only a week. If we had gone the original through the ordinance thing, God, that could have been 3 months from now.
Yeah. Tim?
Councilman Nieder, I understand our, who's gonna pay for the appraisal? Who's gonna pay for the engineer to give an estimate?
Where do you get appraisal or engineer? I'm not asking for either.
Well, if you're asking for an RFP, whoever's gonna present a plan will have to understand the cost that's involved.
Do you
to make it
understand the
right.
cost that you
I
would
just-
present?
I just explained it to the council.
I would
That would be
I
their-
would certainly accept that proposal.
Exactly. So, how would you know their proposal? All right, ditto, whatever Tim said. I can present anything, I know it's my building, so I understand. But as far as doing an RFP, you gotta develop it, and it's gotta be based off something. Well, what are you gonna do with this land? That's not it. What are you gonna do with this wall? What are you gonna do with this wall? What are you gonna do with this drainage ditch? What are you gonna do with the property after it's done? What are you gonna do with the back wall?
Cameron's easement.
And I've already explained what I was planning on doing. So I'm asking if you're gonna present an RFP, that whoever's gonna present a plan, a week's time, have a reasonable understanding of what's gonna cost.
Well, perhaps we need more than a week.
Yeah.
But I think in this case, so I take your argument to mean we need more than a week. But in this case, I think we could get it done in a week.
That's my point. I know it's a week, we've been waiting a year and a half, and every day that goes past is just burning the candle.
do you think this is more as accountability to the citizens or a state issue for us
I think
constitutionally?
it's both.
Nah. I don't
I'm not
really-
concerned on the side because they stepped up on the citizen side. I'm more concerned on the liability side. Because they did step up to the plate, but I want to make sure from the liability side, that's why, that's my concern here. It's a valid point. I mean, it really is.
Valid point. And right now, we're liable, we own the property from over to Paul Lewis's, over to Carter's. We own that. And we're dumping water. We're actually destroying his foundation, the whole bit. That makes us liable as a city.
So we
And
have
it's
we have two liability issues. We have that, and then we have, is this an issue that you're aware of? I mean, MML said they would hope that we do this or that we have to do this.
No, we
No,
don't
they
have
would-
to.
They would just recommend.
They
and
recommend.
Yeah,
consider it.
they don't, MML will not tell you what to do. They'll give you what they would recommend.
And my last question, I won't keep beating on this horse, but, and Bart, you brought this up, if we get these bids, we still have the opportunity to vote on who we want to accept a bid from?
It's not a bid, it's a
No,
proposal.
A proposal,
These are
okay.
different things.
So if
And
the
yes,
proposal comes to us next week,
yes,
we can vote and say, okay, we do not want this proposal, we want
Correct.
to stick with their proposals.
correct.
And we could at that same time.
But it's gonna be too late to get it in the
City
paper.
council meeting to do it. Am I not correct?
You will not be able to get it into this
No.
week's paper. So it'll be next week before you,
They both could.
We could get it in.
you can? Okay.
We can get it in this week.
And then it's done,
Thank you.
then it's done
Do you know
right.
somebody?
Well, what are the terms of these conditions that you want to put on this?
Again, I would need to sit down with Tim and Doug to say, here's what the city's caveats are, what he would present to us. So I
think it's perfectly reasonable, Bob, that
don't have a problem with it, whatever the council decides.
that we not proscribe to, and I understand that Tim is saying there's a lot of issues here that someone needs to be aware of.
Because of the,
I think it's up to the council to determine whether the person returning the proposal is adequately informed, has done their due diligence, represents all of that. We don't have to prescribe that in the RFP.
Tom, I think they'd all be agreeable to maybe set out tonight after the meeting.
Ain't gonna get accomplished tonight.
Well, the only thing I'm saying is we waited long enough, 3 years on the buildings of Dempsey's.
They just
It's-
asked for it.
It's been enough, don't start. We've waited long enough,
Has a motion been made?
and a motion's been made and seconded. Call the roll.
Mr. Hoffman?
I'm voting no because I want to have it done correctly.
Could we have the motion reread?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's been quite a while
Yeah.
since we've had a lot of,
Thank you.
Mr. White made a motion to give the mayor authority to sell the properties, the 4 properties to,
Three.
well, there was 4 altogether, to Carter's and
The
Dempsey's.
RFP, how long will the
Three.
RFP take?
3.
It's gonna take a week or 2.
Three
You're
properties.
not gonna get it done in a week's time.
We can get it done in a week.
Got
3
another-
properties to Carter and Dempsey.
No, not to them, but 3 properties.
3 properties, right. Okay,
That was a no?
motion was made, seconded, we call the roll. Chuck was the first, he said
Needner?
no.
Mr. Needner?
No, because I'm planning on.
I don't need anything but yea or nay.
Nay.
Good.
Mr. Paulus?
No.
Mrs. Smith?
Nay.
Mr. Stevens?
nay,
Mr. White?
Yes?
Mr. Wood?
Yes.
Motion failed.
I'd like to make a motion that we put out an RFP on this, and that's the first motion. After this motion, I'm going to make a motion to have a special
Make
meeting.
your first motion, you don't put 2 on the board at a time, 1 at a time. Make your motion.
No, I'm going to explain the motion I'm making, which includes context of the second motion. Instead of wrapping everything up in one motion, I'm going to break it into 2 motions. There are 2 parts. The first part, the first motion, is to issue RFPs for these properties immediately. The second part, which will have to happen subsequently because it will be a second motion, will be to convene a special meeting so that we can consider those RFPs in a timely manner, which would be next week.
I second the first and second motion.
Well, we can do it one at a time.
I second the first motion.
So the motion is to immediately issue RFPs requesting proposals to be printed in the papers for possible
are you limited
land
in
use.
1 week?
1 week.
1 week
I
timescale.
want a limit on it, if we can.
Can you subscribe the deadline within the motion?
Sure, that's a great idea. I would say next Tuesday or Wednesday, next Tuesday,
Perfect.
by next Tuesday.
Okay.
So that's my motion.
Again, I second.
Motion made and second.
Discussion, Bob?
The paper. Will that come out where it's not just 1 or 2 days before somebody sees it?
It would come out in this week's paper.
Yeah, it comes out on Tuesday.
It ain't gonna come out that fast enough this week.
Well,
Comes out
it
tomorrow.
depends if you guys can write up what you need in the legal description for the legal notice by tomorrow morning.
Okay,
We have it, it's in the documents.
Basically,
There's already.
this is
Okay.
gonna cover our behind.
Lawyers already provided.
okay, I can go with that, thank you, Tim. Yeah,
We have the
That'll
legal
work.
description.
okay, that's all I was just questioning.
Motion made and seconded, call the roll.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mr. Needner?
Yes.
Mr. Polis?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith? Mr. Stevens?
Yay.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Wood?
Yes.
Second motion is to convene next Tuesday night for a special full council meeting for the purpose of considering the request, any requests for proposals on these properties.
I will be gone next week. Will I be able to?
You're going all next week.
All next week?
All until, I won't be home till the 23rd of July.
As long as you're on the phone for the whole thing, your vote counts.
Yep.
Can you put me on speaker?
We can do this digitally.
What's the
I
date?
suggest that.
What's the
Suggest
date?
that.
16th? Tuesday the 16th?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not available next week. He's-
Grab's not available.
But you don't necessarily need me if you're just gonna discuss and say, this is what we want the documents to be changed to. Or they've been supplied to the city electronically. You know, This is just my suggestion on how to do it. You don't have to follow my advice. People don't always follow their lawyer's advice. They don't always follow their doctor's advice. But this is how I suggest you do it in this kind of a format. If you want me to draft any conditions to add to the real estate contract, I'll be happy to do that, but I have to work it in my schedule, my other duties too.
When would we have to have those to you by, to be able to have those by next week?
You mean the specifics of the conditions?
The conditions.
That, you know, couldn't that be handled after we have the proposals?
No, that couldn't?
Sure it could. We could discuss the resolution that we want drafted next Tuesday and empower such a resolution to be written and enacted.
Then you're prolonging it again.
By how long?
Mr. Mayor, thank you for letting me speak again. I'm sorry for taking everybody's time. Only thing I want to address the council with is, you know, I've already secured my properties, you know, monetarily wise, to do the construction of my building. Okay, you all need to take consideration, and I do hold my tongue very greatly because I do lose my temper a lot. But if you all do this RFP and somebody else does beat us out, Lynn and I out, of buying this lot, it doesn't affect me one way or another. My lot's already secured. My building's already secured. As soon as I get my wall up by the end of July, y'all can't do anything to me. You can't touch me. But is it going to cause a conflict of interest if somebody does beat Lynn and I out of this other lot? You know, because it's not big enough to do anything on. You know, is it going to, you know, you all have to ask yourselves that question. You know, and I'm not trying to bully anybody, and I'm not trying to persuade anybody's decision. But, you know, I can walk away from the lot right now, just as easily.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Well,
My stuff is secured.
Right, and what you mean, and you're right.
You know,
It's-
and
it's
like I
gonna
said,
happen.
hold on a second, sir, hold on a second. I listen to all y'all. You know, my thing is, like I said, 3.5 years, that lot has been vacant. 3.5 years, nobody's ever said a word. Lynn and I, we started getting our ducks in a row, and now all of a sudden, certain members of city council want to throw up the red flags and say, "Oh, wait a minute, let's just let everybody have a shot at this." That's fine. Like I said, I can walk out of here right now, and I can walk away from it. You know, we have a plan to have before Colorfest a parking lot there that will be suitable. It may be gravel, not concrete, but it will be suitable for people to park, bring revenue to Louisiana. But if nobody wants to, if everybody wants to sit there and bicker and fight, like I said, Lynn and I can get up right now. We can walk away from the whole project. I have my land secured.
Doug, nobody's disagreeing. Nobody's disagreeing.
I mean, 2 months.
What our job is to do is to make sure it's done the right way. On both sides, not just your side. Everybody in this room wants a successful business from you two to be there. I don't think anybody
We're
else.
not, Mr. Police, we're not talking about business right now.
Whatever,
All this
parking
could
lot,
be-
beautification,
all this
whatever it
could
is,
be
I don't care if you
in
have
the
a flower shop. All I'm saying is,
Hey, Mr. Chairman, this man got the right to speak. I thought this man had the floor.
what are you talking
I
about?
mean, this what, we
That's
we
good.
got everybody
Okay,
talking
all
up
right.
there, and I'm listening.
All right, I think what we need
You
to
have the right to
do.
speak.
Why don't you
Hey,
shut
You have the
up?
right to speak.
No, I
All right.
don't. Go to you.
Hey,
I
guys.
don't either. Go to you.
Let's
Either by
quit.
you.
Let's quit. Right now. We've had enough discussion on that. Motions are all on the floor. What we're gonna do, so let's leave it at that. We'll go.
Did we vote on the motion to issue,
No.
to have a special council meeting?
We were in discussion.
Was it ever seconded?
It was seconded, yes.
Who seconded it? I didn't get, you seconded, okay.
Yeah.
So, but I think we were talking about a date, July 16th,
Well,
5:30.
unless the other councilman want Rap present. He won't be present for this when they come back
Is it
in.
just that day, or is it,
It's that whole week I've got trials.
it would push it off a whole nother week, so I think we.
Or, you know, if you think, you could go ahead and kind of solidify what it is you want and put it
And you can get back to us.
in some kind of written
We
form.
can do this digitally, asynchronously. So I think the motion, I guess you'd have to pull your second off so I can amend to include the time and date to my motion.
Well, he's not gonna be here next week either.
But you seconded
But
the
I'll-
motion.
I mean, I'll digitally be here, but.
I'll be here by phone.
What's that? Yeah, I withdraw.
Okay, so then I will amend my motion to have a special meeting for the consideration of these real estate sales RFPs next July, or this July 16th, 5:30 PM.
Second the motion.
Okay, motion made and second. Call the roll.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mr. Niedner?
Yes.
Mr. Paulus?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yay.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Wood?
Yes. Okay, so be it. Thank you all. Anybody else like to address council at this time?
I'm Don Oakley, resident of Ward 2, and as Monty Python would say, we're on to something a little bit different. I got a paper, Press Journal, Wednesday, June the 19th. I wanted to read you something, and probably most of you have read it. It says, Mr. Hoffman said Mr. Oakley did simply not have the knowledge and interest in historic preservation that commission members are expected to have. Hoffman is also an HPC member. What I'd like to ask Mr. Hoffman is what kind of a gauge or a standard you used to determine my knowledge and interest, and please share with me and all these good people your qualifications for being on HPC.
Okay. First of all, you're reading it from the newspaper, and I think most of us have had experience of being misquoted in the newspaper. I did not originally read that. Mr. Elliott, Monroe Elliott, informed me that it was in the newspaper, and he said, you did not say that. I do not recall saying it. If you go back and you read the ordinances are very specific. It says you can own a business, you can be a resident, and so on. But the second part of it says that you must show that you have an interest in historic preservation and a knowledge of it. And I do not feel that you have the knowledge that would be required to operate as a member of the HPC. I have not been a member of the HPC for well over a year.
But you did serve.
I did serve for 8 years.
What were your qualifications?
What were my qualifications? I have a degree in art history. I have a degree I restored my house in Minneapolis. I have lived overseas. I was invited by the mayor. That part of the ordinance may not have even existed at the time I was appointed. I don't know. But the mayor had no problem at all with my qualifications. I'm a member of, I'm a member of the Historic Preservation Association. In fact, I am president of that. I have presented papers to the Pike County Historic Society. I was a major contributor and member of the Preserve Louisiana's Images. I certainly have a great deal of interest in historic preservation. And I am well aware of the requirements of someone who is a member of it.
How many people on the HPC, when you started, had degrees?
Had degrees? I have no idea. I don't, to me a degree is just a degree.
But that's what you used for your qualifications, were
That's
your
right.
degrees.
That's right. I'm not going to argue with you on the issue. But when I joined the HPC, it was an extremely, all the individuals had characteristics and the requirements to be on HPC.
Okay. So you're telling me then that you didn't make that statement, that that's an error in...
I do not recall making the statement. I guess the only way we can find out whether I made this statement is to go back and to listen to a tape of it.
Okay.
And if I did, then I certainly apologize, but I did not feel that you had the qualifications for it.
You have one,
Everybody's entitled to their opinion.
Don, you have 1 minute.
Everybody's entitled to their opinion.
That's correct.
I accept your apology. Thank you.
Thank you, Don.
I
Anybody
just
else?
really want to make a real quick statement that Mr. Hoffman did not mention any names in his statement
Thank you.
at all. He did.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody else want to address?
Mr. Hoffman, you just said that you didn't feel that he's qualified.
That's correct.
In what way or form? Is that a misquote?
No, I don't think that's a misquote. As I go back
But
and
you just, how you started it was, we've all had experience being misquoted in the paper.
That's correct.
And I love how everyone always falls back on that.
Oh, I apologize, but I have been misquoted.
But you were not misquoted.
No, I was not misquoted. That's correct. Yes, you were. Yes, I was. I'm sorry.
But you
Yes, I'm sorry.
just said that you didn't feel he was qualified.
I'm 73 years old and I get...
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. Anybody else want to address the council? If not, we will go on reading and hearing petitions, other communication, if there is any. If not, we'll go to committee reports. Sal.
Whoa, okay. Let's get to it. Called the meeting to order at 5:30 with Mr. Nieder, myself, Mr. Stevens, Mr. Wood present, also Mr. Jenny, Mayor Wallace, Mr. Rapp, and Ms. Johnson. I made a motion to approve the minutes of the June 10th, 2013 meeting, seconded by Mr. Stevens, all voted yea. I made a motion to take to full council paying Klinger & Associate amount of $12,097.40, seconded by Mr. Nieder, all voted yea. Also made a motion to take to full council paying Lehman Construction LLC in the amount of $260,839.35, seconded by Mr. Stevens, all voting yea. Oh, I apologize. I need to make a motion to bring full council to pay both of those, the $12,097.40 to Klinger and the $260,839.35 to Lehman Construction LLC.
I'll second that motion.
Motion made and second, call the roll.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mr. Neener?
Yes.
Mr. Paulus?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yay.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Wood?
Yes.
Also made a motion to bring before council pay warrant 53 through 61, 2013, in the amount of $233,393.02, seconded by Mr. Stevens. Make a motion to pay those as well.
Second.
Motion made and second, call the roll.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mr. Neener?
Yes.
Mr. Paulus?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yay.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Wood?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Jenny stated that the audit was complete, but has not received a report from Wade Stable. Recommended that the city establish 4 new accounts on the sewage system revenue fund, the sewage system operation and maintenance account, the sewage system depreciation and replacement account, and the sewage system surplus account. We haven't come up with anything for funding, but I'd make a motion to create these accounts.
I second that motion.
Motion made and second, call the roll.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mr. Neener?
Yes.
Mr. Paulus?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yay.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Jenny stated that there are 2 ordinances that need to be voted on. The first, an ordinance authorizing the cancellation of the surplus balances in the 2012-2013 budget for the city of Louisiana. The second was an ordinance establishing the salaries of the city attorney, city prosecutor, chief of police, city judge, city treasurer, city clerk, fire chief, and fire truck driver custodian for the terms of June 2013 through May of 2014. Looks like they were supposed to be taken full council in June for passage. I make a motion to pass those ordinances. Or do those have to go through ordinance committee?
Yes.
You have to make a recommendation.
Okay, I make a recommendation for those to go to ordinance committee.
Acceptable?
Special.
What's the motion?
It's a special
Are we
session.
saying they're gonna go to ordinance, or are we saying that we're gonna give them special status?
Give
so
them
we can
No, they're
special
going
today?
status. You're gonna give
Oh, we're gonna
them-
vote on those today?
Your motion needs to be to make those,
Okay.
give them special
Right,
status.
today. Okay, I make a motion to give those 2 ordinances special status today.
I second that motion.
Okay, motion made and second, call the roll.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mr. Neener?
Yes.
Mr. Paulus?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yay.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Wood?
Yes.
I also made a motion to adjourn,
But we can
second.
go ahead and deal with those.
Through,
I think
through
Jeff.
You
finance
can
now?
you can deal
Deal
with
with it
that.
under
We're
ordinance.
doing
You
ordinance.
During ordinance?
Yeah.
We adjourned, Mr. Stevens, seconded by Mr. Stevens, we all voted yea at 5:40 PM.
Thank you, Sam. Fire committee,
We met on July 1st, and the minutes will show that the only thing to note is that the hiring of Skylar Pitzer is still pending. That's all I have.
what is the status? Do we,
That it's still, according to Chief Leslie, it's still pending. He's had some communication difficulties, we believe due to a new child having been born, et cetera, which is what I discussed. It's still pending.
very good, thank you. Police,
We approved the minutes of our June committee meeting. We held an impound auction. Chief Hughes stated that the auction went very well, and he wanted to thank Christina Boyd and Wiley Harris for their participation in making this a useful, worthwhile event. It was brought out that August the 6th is a Tuesday, will be the National Night Out. And there will be more information forthcoming on that. That's all we have.
thank you. Streets and alleys,
The minutes you read and approved for the July meeting. Mr. A stated stop sign at 9th and North Carolina is not visible due to the tree. Chief Hughes and Mr. Adams will look to see what needs to be done.
We're gonna put a larger sign, we're gonna move it over where it's more visible, and we're gonna cut the branches away from that location.
Pretty quick. Okay. And Dottie got compliment the street department, water department, police department for their work during the flood, and that's all I have.
thank you. Buildings and grounds,
Our July 1st meeting, Mr. Paulus is meeting with Curtis Henderson and a couple others concerning the ball field at 6:30 p.m. tonight. There were complaints about a large hole in the road going down to the park that's been repaired. Mr. Jenny put out an RFO for an engineer's study that needs to be done on the Hodges building. Paint will be provided by the city for the building at Lincoln Park, and there are volunteers to do the actual painting. I was up there today. The park looks real nice. The water fountain's been repaired, and it looks pretty nice, being kept pretty clean. The concrete patch on Town Branch on North 9th Street is eroding from underneath. Mr. Jenny will look and stated he may have to have an engineer to look at it. The dumpsters being removed from Star Hill and the burned debris has been removed as well. An environmental specialist from the DNR met with Mr. Jenny and stated if the dumpster was to remain up there, the city would be considered a processing facility. This requires very lengthy permitting and fees. The representative also informed Mr. Jenny that if there is at least one residence within 200 yards of Star Hill, an air curtain destructor would have to be installed or waivers will need to be obtained from those particular residents. Mr. Jenny believes this will cost upward of $30,000. Mr. Elliott stated he believes everything possible needs to be done to keep Star Hill open. Mr. Jenny received a proposal from Jim Davis and Rudy Bell for the purchase of the building at 401 Georgia Street. No action was taken on this matter. Mr. Jenny, what about the RFO? Forgot where I read that.
You're down at the bottom.
From the Hodges building. Have we got anything on that?
Two architectural firms have inquired about for the statement of qualifications, and they've been sent out. With regards to Star Hill, I received notification. Well, first of all, I was able to obtain, they informed me that there were 5 residents. Actually, there was only 4 homes. There's actually 5 homes within the 200-yard boundary. One is Rockney Calhoun's, and that's unoccupied. The other 4, I was able to obtain waivers from the residents. Last word I heard from DNR today is that they would be reissuing our new burn permit sometime this week.
Good. That's all I have.
Larry, I have something.
Okay.
You know, Jim Davis and Rudy Bell made a proposal to buy the Gertha Hodges building, which belongs to the city. And they had a couple stipulations. One was the city to have a dumpster, and for us to set up a time limit, or as long as they're working and improving it, we give them time to do it. When I first read the proposal, I wasn't too impressed with it. But after I got to thinking about what it would cost us to tear it down or to renovate it, the proposal, the trash container isn't that much. We could invest $1,000 and let them have the proposal. I would recommend to the council that we let them.
Were those the only 2 stipulations?
No, there was a total of 4 or 5.
You want me to read them?
Yeah, if you've got them, go ahead.
Okay. Number 1, the public bidding procedure for the building known as 401 Georgia Street, Louisiana, Missouri, must be complete. 1 year to complete the building code violations. Closing costs for said property are to be shared by the LLC and the city. At the time of closing, we shall have the LLC and construction insurance. The city of Louisiana to provide one free 30-yard dumpster for building stabilization. Signed, Jim Davis, Rudy Bell.
Number one has already been completed because back in November of 2012, I put out a bid and I got no bids back from anybody for the building. So in all effect, that has been completed.
Will they have that same completion date, a 1-year completion date to bring to code that he's requesting?
From the time that
From the
you-
time,
That, right. that he
from the
takes
time the council would agree
Right, sure.
to their proposal.
Sure.
So are you asking us to address this at the special council meeting while we're doing the other ones, or what?
You can wait until next month to do this one, or however you wish to proceed.
Can it be included in, what?
Being a special meeting, yeah. You
Well,
can-
basically,
no.
these are separate issues because
I'd say,
Yeah,
different
just
processes have already
Bring
been
it back.
conducted.
Gives you a month's time to
Yeah.
think about it.
Right.
That way.
I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, and like I said, different processes have been conducted with the 401 properties as opposed to the other properties. So I think we're more in compliance with the 401 than the other two.
Okay. Go ahead.
That's all I have.
Okay. Water Committee. That'd be the second man on the list.
Okay.
This,
No.
They never made a motion to approve the minutes
I
I
got
had to look.
on buildings and
Mr.
grounds.
Eager made a motion to approve the minutes for the June meeting. Grant for
I
engineering
heard
study
you.
for the water tower and industrial park is still pending. And project to fix the water tank on E Street is still pending. Mr. Jenny will contact the company that gave the proposal to fix it. Mr. Jenny?
Actually, that's still pending, and what we got to look at is when there is less demand on the water supply, because both of the tanks will have to be dropped, and I want to do it at a time when there's less consumption, but it's still above the appropriate temperature to do the epoxy application.
Okay.
So that's basically what we're playing with right now. What we did get notification on was that with that certified site program that Sharon is involved in, we did get notice that we did get approved for the phase 1
And that's
environmental.
the industrial park.
And that'll make the industrial park a certified Missouri site,
Wonderful.
Once all the other work's done.
once she gets everything completed.
Okay.
Yeah.
The wastewater plant project is 2 months behind due to all the flooding and may need to be changes on section 715.030 and 715.090 of the code concerning special counsel the water plant, wastewater plant. Mr. Jenny will be meet with Mr. Elliott concerning this.
And that was the recommendations that were brought up tonight.
Okay. And that's all.
Thank you.
Yes.
How long will that epoxy paste in our water? Oh, wait a minute, I'm asking you, you can't.
No, the epoxy's applied on the outside.
I don't think there'll be any taste in the water right now.
Epoxy does taste.
Now, it's gonna be, they're gonna lower the tank enough to
Yeah.
put the epoxy.
Yeah.
I knew you did.
But I not only,
I looked up that.
I have to do the Star Hill tank and the E Street tank
Right.
Yeah,
and drop them both.
okay. Kathy, you can get him after the meeting.
Okay. Thinking real hard.
Okay. Grant Committee,
Motion was made to approve the minutes of the June meeting, seconded by Mr. Stevens. There are more benches coming from the recycled tire grant, and there's been no communication in the MLB grant. Nothing yet still.
nothing.
Same nothing.
And we adjourn at 6:44.
Thank you. Chuck?
Okay, I made a motion to approve the minutes of the June meeting, and Mr. Elliott seconded it. I also made a motion to recommend to full council the passage of an ordinance, which I will read to you twice tonight. And it was seconded by Mrs. Smith, and it was carried. The ordinance is as follows, and I'll read it twice tonight. An ordinance enacted pursuant to the Missouri Revised Statutes, Section 67.110, fixing the annual rate of levy for the real estate and personal property taxes within the corporate limits of the city of Louisiana, Missouri. First
I'll
reading.
make a motion to accept the first reading of that ordinance.
A second?
Motion made, second, call the roll.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mr. Neener?
Yes.
Mr. Paulus?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yay.
Mr. Stevens?
Yay.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Wood?
Yes.
I will now read the second reading of it. An ordinance enacted pursuant to Missouri Revised Statutes, Section 67.110, fixing the annual rate of levy for the real estate and personal property taxes within the corporate limits of the city of Louisiana, Missouri. Second reading.
Make a motion, we accept the second reading.
I second it.
Motion made, second, call the roll.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mr. Neener?
Yes.
Mr. Paulus?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yay.
Mr. Stevens?
Yay.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Wood?
The council has asked for special status of two ordinances. I will read them for, I guess I can read them twice to you. Okay, the first
Where-
one,
If I may, were they posted? I
Yes.
know one of them was,
Yes.
both of them were.
They're both, all three
All three
posted
were
there,
po-
upstairs
Well, the
and
tax
outside.
levy was posted
Right,
and the other
earlier.
two were also
So you only have
posted.
to read these by
okay,
title.
only have three.
By title only.
Yes.
Title only is all you have to do.
Okay. The first reading, an ordinance establishing the salaries of the city attorney, city prosecutor, chief of police, city judge, city treasurer, city clerk, fire chief, and fire truck driver, custodian for the terms of June 2013 through May of 2014. First reading.
Make a motion, we accept the first reading, first reading.
Motion made, second, call the roll.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mr. Neener?
Yes.
Mr. Paulus?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Abstain.
Mr. Stevens?
Yay.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Wood?
Second reading, an ordinance establishing the salaries of the city attorney, city prosecutor, chief of police, city judge, city treasurer, city clerk, fire chief and truck driver, custodian for the terms of June 2013 through May of 2014. Second reading.
Okay. I entertain a motion.
Make a motion, we
Okay, approve the second, do I have a second?
I second.
Second, motion made, second, call the roll.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mr. Neener?
Yes.
Mr. Paulus?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Abstain.
Mr. Stevens?
Yay.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Wood?
Yes.
Okay, the second ordinance is as follows. An ordinance authorizing the cancellation of the surplus balances in the 2012-2013 budget for the city of Louisiana. First reading.
I make a motion, we accept the first reading.
Second.
Motion made and second, call the roll.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mr. Neener?
Yes.
Mr. Paulus?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yay.
Mr. Stevens?
Yay.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Wood?
Second reading. An ordinance authorizing the cancellation of the surplus balances in the 2012-2013 budget for the city of Louisiana. Second reading.
Make a motion, we accept the second reading.
I second it.
Motion made and second, call the roll.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mr. Neener?
Yes.
Mr. Paulus?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yay.
Mr. Stevens?
Yay.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Wood?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Nieder found typographical errors in the ordinances, and he will meet with the city clerk to work on those. There was some discussion on several ordinances, including the two for the sale of properties to Tim and Sandra Carter and Doug and Lynn Dempsey. No proper motion was made to go to full council.
Very good. Thank you, Chuck.
I don't know if it's appropriate to talk about here, but this motion that was made at some point requiring proposed ordinances, bills, to be posted before the ordinance committee could consider them. Bob spent a great deal of time, 2.5 hours, looking. All he could come up with was a May 14th reference that really seems to reference the full council's consideration and matches what we have in ordinance, but adds that we would only do one reading per full council meeting. There is nothing in there that indicates that it has to do with something besides the council, i.e. a committee of the council. And I have a lot of concerns. It halted our ability to do our job. In fact, because we passed without giving special status the tax levy and then didn't go ahead and move forward with the other ordinances, we acted both ways. We were wrong regardless of which way you want to interpret this thing. We either irresponsibly passed the levy forward to the full council, or we irresponsibly didn't do our job with the other bills. I believe that if the council wishes to change the way that we consider ordinances, that we should do that in ordinance, not in motions. Motions are very difficult, this being case in point, to go back and find and remember, or for a new councilman to learn what the process is. How will council members 6-8 years from now know that this motion was made or be able to find it? So I think we need to redress that motion that was made. And I think that should probably start in the ordinance committee, which is why I'm bringing it up under your report. And I would suggest that if the point of that is to make sure the public is aware that there are better ways to do it than prescribed here. And so I would just bring up to you, to take back to your committee and the council's awareness that I believe we have an issue here, and I think that we should take action to clarify and get our ducks in a row about how we handle our ordinances.
I've always viewed it as this is a way for us as a council, as a committee and a council to indicate to the public what is coming up at the full council meeting. And I think that's probably why we've always done it that way.
Yeah. Okay. Is that all you have,
That's
Chuck?
all I have.
Thank you. Special reports, city administrator,
None.
human relations, board of adjustment.
Board had one issue that we put it on hold because the applicant is taking a different route, and we're going to wait and see how that goes.
Yeah.
And I have a question for the Board of Adjustments. Who is on the Board of Adjustments?
We have no idea right now. We're still
So let's go ahead and,
I'm supposed to be fishing.
I think you are supposed to be fishing. What I have here, and I will pass this around, this is this is the clerk's notes on what the terms are and when they expire. This is, the second page is a copy of the minutes. It's actually 2 pages on the header of the front page and then the actual page of the minutes where Porter Elliott is appointed. So for instance, Porter Elliott is appointed in 2008 for a 5-year term, which matches the city clerk's record. That would be 2008 to 2013, and I believe you should be fishing. Kelly Henderson is on the 3rd page, and he was appointed on in April of 2009 for a 5-year term, and that would indicate, and it matches the clerk's records of 2009 to 2014. So I would like to get on the same page about where our very important committee of the Board of
I'm going
Adjustments?
through
Who are the
that right
members?
now.
Well, let's do it together. What criteria is it that you're using to go through?
I'm checking the records.
What records, may I ask?
The minutes.
Okay, I have those.
Okay, but I'm going back to I'm going past 208 because he was appointed by Don Giltner for a 5-year term. And he was also extended in according to the records I've got, in 208 for another year.
It was extended from 208 to 209.
Right, and then in
And
208.
that's what he's in the process of doing, is
Right.
researching those minutes, because from what he understands is that from 209 to April of 2014, Porter would still be on the Board of Adjustment.
Okay, well, I
So
think,
depending upon how those minutes reflect.
so you're looking for minutes in 2009 that appoint,
2008.
I'm
actually.
going back to 2008.
okay, the 2008 minutes I have here, and it appoints Porter for a 5-year term in
Plus he had-
2008.
So we're going back to 207 because he was extended a year prior to being appointed in 2000.
And how would that have bearing on 2013?
Well, if you had 5 years, you're appointed for 5 years, and on your 4th year, the mayor comes in and he said, I'm extending you for a year. You have 2 years left.
But you're saying that
And
in 2007 he was extended a year?
That's the way I understand.
That would be to 2008.
No, he had 5 years prior to that. And in 2007, he still had 4 years to go, and Don extended him for another year, the way I understand the records that I've got. And that's where
So
I'm
what-
at right now, checking
Okay.
them, because I'm the one that does the appointing, and you either approve or disapprove.
But we all have to live with the Board of Adjustments decisions. And
That's
right now,
correct.
the Board of Adjustments itself is unclear about who its members are. We have a member in question wondering if he should be fishing.
No, sir.
We're
Wait a minute.
stating-
Whoa.
Okay,
I was appointed in 2009. Kelly Henderson was not appointed at all.
but that's not
Wait,
what,
I don't care what the record said. Look at that record, you'll see there's 6 people on that list, right?
so should we go by your recollection or by
You
the
got 2
official
members
record?
serving, no, wait, look on your list, you'll see 2 people serving the same term. Dory Elke and Bob Ringhausen. That's an impossibility.
Yeah, that is a problem. So that might need to be remedied.
Dory Elke is an alternate. She was appointed as an alternate.
How many actual members is there?
5.
Not
There can be
counting-
5, there can
not
only
counting
be
all-
5.
There can
State
only-
allows 5.
So,
Five
so
And
that
there's
would,
alternating.
so she's an alternate for the 2010-2015, but that means that the regular
No,
members,
alternates serve forever.
okay? She's an alternate, so that means there are 5 members because there's 6 listed here.
Yeah. Kelly Henderson has been off. Kelly Henderson was put on in 2007.
Well, here's minutes from
You
2009.
cannot understand my explanation if you're disturbed. Now, Kelly Henderson was put on in 2007 when he got done with Bob Jennings. Kelly Henderson fulfilled the uncompleted term of Darrell Wallace. 2 years. That's how he come to be in 2009. He went off in 2009.
But here are minutes in 2009
I
appointing him for
don't
5 years.
control the minutes. I just control the board of
Should we
adjustment.
go by your recollection of the minutes?
Well,
I gave Tom Wallace, the mayor,
I have the list.
a complete list of my service since 2002.
And I've got the dates and everything. You wanna come in and help me check the records, you come in and help me. But we're not gonna discuss this in open session because I just got through telling you, I'm working on it right now, and when I get to corrected minutes,
When can we expect that?
when I get through with the minutes.
I would like to have them in a reasonable
Well,
amount
you're
of
not
time.
putting a deadline on me. I will do it as quick as I can. You know,
We have a Board of Adjustment that's doing official action, taking official action, and we
That's
don't even
right,
know if
and
these
until-
members are appointed.
and until I correct the records, as a consultant, he stays there. That's my authority.
As a consultant, he's going to stay on
He's
the
gonna
Board of
stay.
Adjustment.
Straight out so I can go fishing.
And
That's right.
he's going to consult as the, as the chairman of the Board of Adjustments.
No, he's gonna be there as consultant. I didn't
So who's
say-
chairman of the Board of Adjustments?
They have none at this time. And just like I had a couple councilmen, and I'd like for Sonny to speak what he said when we was talking about this, because he's been informed about when we lost Porter, we lost a lot of knowledge.
Yes, we did.
So,
I
that
don't
is
see
my
that that's
rim.
bearing. Where is
It
that
is
bearing?
Barry,
In what way?
because when you want to know something about the Board of Adjustment, you ain't qualified, I ain't, he is.
Well, I take exception to that, but.
Well,
I
you
don't
can
see
take
that-
exceptions all you want.
Well, I do.
The committees are my choice, you either approve or disapprove.
The
As soon as
council
I-
approves or disapproves, and we have minutes that say a certain thing.
As soon
do
as
not
I,
match what we
as
are
soon as
doing.
I correct the minutes, or I find out the correction on the board, I will let the council know. Until then, I'm studying it, and I've asked Bob, and we've talked about it. So, it's nothing that I think, it's a legislative issue, and as soon as I find the correct dates, you will be given them. Until then, you'll just have to sit back and wait.
I'll research it tomorrow.
Thank you, Bob.
Any resolutions? Or board, we had the board, any resolutions? New business?
I have one item, and I apologize that I couldn't get it distributed to the council, but I just now received it today, and that's from Sissel and Mueller regarding the Dollar General property and them wanting to quit claim deed that the stormwater area and the easement area in the back to the city. And with the council's approval, I would like to ask that the mayor be...
Let's stop just a second. Miss Morris, you give me the finger again and I will have you removed from this audience.
Mr. Mayor, I did not give
Yeah,
you
what was this?
anything.
What was this?
I didn't do that.
Yes, you did.
No, I
And
didn't.
I just asked the attorney to sit down. You do it again and
Normal.
I'll have you removed.
Mr. Mayor.
Take her out.
In continuing, as I said, they want to quit claim deed that property to us for the sum of $10. And I would ask that you approve empowering the mayor to go ahead and sign off on this agreement.
Don't we already own that ditch, that waterway?
No,
Oh, that we don't?
that was all part of their lump sum purchase.
Okay.
So that's what this would do, is return that back to us? So
It
we can
would,
make
yes, it would
improvement there.
return the stormwater culvert and the part that's, the back part that's to the north next to McCarty's. It's about a,
Do we need a resolution in order to do that, or can?
You gotta appropriate the massive
Yeah, I guess
fund
we
of
would have to.
$10. You can't spend money without the
I'll go get my wallet.
legislative approval.
So, right, but I mean, we need a resolution, not a motion. Per your earlier conversation?
You're going with land.
But that's, see, that's
we can,
sale versus
I'll
purchase.
make a motion that we empower the mayor to write a resolution. I don't. what
it'll
should
get,
we do
it's
here?
gonna wind up being pushed to next month
Okay,
anyway, so.
okay. Well, I'm all
But
for it.
just,
What do we need to do? I'm a little confused.
Make a motion that we buy.
or do we
Buy it for
pursue pursue a resolution to approve the expenditure of $10 for the purchase of this property
I make a
from
resolution.
DG Partners?
I make a resolution that we, I make a motion that we pursue a resolution to purchase this property for $10.
I second it.
Motion made and seconded, call the roll.
Mr. Hoffman?
My property, but yes.
Mr. Needner?
Yes.
Mr. Paulus?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yay.
Mr. Stevens?
Yay.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Wood?
That's all that I have.
Okay. Anybody else? If not, media clarification.
Yeah, I just want to clarify what the vote officially was on the RFPs. Was it 7-0? I had a hard time understanding Mr. Stevens' vote.
He said yay.
Yeah, he did say it.
I do believe it was 7-0. April?
I don't need a clarification, but I'd like to make a clarification.
Go right ahead.
This whole misquoting, I understand that it's not my paper that we're discussing, but it is a common problem with this council in particular. I cover several councils and boards, and only this one do we hear on a regular basis that someone's been misquoted. And I really think that maybe you guys should consider that that is probably the worst thing that you can accuse a reporter of, and then saying that I've been misquoted is really an indictment. And, you know, if you're saying that you've been misquoted, but you're saying the very same thing that you're claiming you're misquoted about, that's, you know, consider the fact that that's a real indictment, and maybe you should phrase your words a little more carefully.
I'd just like to say that the role of the papers, in my opinion, are absolutely critical to the task that this council has. I appreciate the tremendous difficulty involved in your job and trying to, I could never keep it straight. I have to go listen to an audio over and over again, piecemeal, to get quotes correctly. It's incredibly time consuming. The fact that you guys do the job you do, it's amazing. And with that said, it's pretty stressful up here sometimes. So maybe both sides need to give some latitude, but I want you to know that your job, I respect it so much, and something is going to get wrong.
I understand that. And you know, I think that it gets thrown around too easily, and I'm trying to tell you guys, be considerate of the fact that that is the worst thing that you can level against somebody, especially when in the same breath you're saying the very thing that you claim to be misquoted about.
Yes.
Motion.
I was gonna make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Third, fourth, fifth, sixth.
Call the roll.
Mr. Hoffman? Mr. Needner?
Yes.
Mr. Paulus? Mrs. Smith? Mr. Stevens?
Yay.
Mr. White? Mr. Wood?
I wasn't gonna take that.
Well, Muller's
Did you see her give me the finger?
I was looking down trying to write.
Huh?
I was writing.
I told Rap to look, because
I tried.
she was going like this.
Oh.
So I just decided that last time she did that,
You got in trouble, so.
I got in trouble over it. So I decided to stop it right then and there.
You're the presiding officer.